Hey there! Welcome to the Flute 360 podcast. I'm Dr. Heidi K. Begay, and I'm a flutist, educator, coach, and podcaster. My God-given mission is to serve you. I am passionate about guiding you, the modern-day flutist, to discover your unique voice on and off the stage. The goal of this podcast is to help you thrive, both as an artist and as a musicpreneur. Go ahead and grab some espresso, your favorite notepad, and let's get to it. Today's episode 265 is titled Create Your Portfolio Career with Dr. Flute. Are you looking for the perfect flute or piccolo to take your music to the next level? Look no further than the Carolyn Nesbaum Music Company in Plano, Texas. Since 1996, we've been the go-to source for flutists of all levels with an unrivaled selection of flutes, piccolos, low flutes, and head joints from dozens of top makers. But we're more than just a music store. We are your complete resource for everything flute related, with sheet music, instrumental accessories, teaching resources, and health information all under one roof. And our in-house staff of experts is always ready to help you find exactly what you need to achieve your musical goals. At the Carolyn Nesbaum Music Company, we're committed to excellence in all aspects of our business, from our top quality products to our friendly personalized service. And with an in-house repair staff certified in all major brands, you can trust us to keep your instruments in top condition for years to come. Follow us on social media to stay up to date on the latest news and events, and visit our website at flute4u.com to shop our extensive selection of flutes, piccolos, and more. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned pro, the Carolyn Nesbaum Music Company is your one-stop flute shop.
You hear me now?
Yes.
No? Yes. Okay. It's weird. I just pushed mute, which muted me, and then I unmuted, and voila.
Right? Sometimes the toggling does work, actually.
Yeah. You just have to poke buttons enough until things work.
Yeah. Technology is a beautiful thing, isn't it?
It is. When it works, it's great.
Yeah. And you know all about technology a little bit more than me, just because you have the video aspect too.
I do, but my husband is the guru here on that. So It is not me doing all the editing.
You and I have that in common, and I did not know that. My husband is the audio guy too.
I know your husband has those skills. The only difference is my husband had to learn those skills to edit my videos. He did not come with those skills. Whereas I think your husband came with those skills, right?
He did come with those skills, and I just got very lucky. You're like, hey, look, honey, look at what you're going to learn.
Yeah. It's so interesting that, really my whole channel, the whole thing that I do started because he said I should do it. It was all him.
Really?
All him. Yep.
Oh, wow.
It was not really on my radar. And we started with doing classes on Udemy, the learning platform Udemy, and then it just branched off from there.
Wow. Well, we have that in common too. I wouldn't not be here right now with Flute 360 if it wasn't for Eric. Because even before the DMA, he was kind of like planting that seed. You should start a podcast. You should start a podcast. I'm like, who would listen to that? I'm not doing that.
I know.
Full circle, when it came time for dissertation time, it was like, oh, you should do a podcast. It's like, okay.
That works out very well. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that interesting how our, especially like spouses in the sense of, we're talking about husbands, but how much of an impact these different relationships can have in one's life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think the trajectory that we have in mind of where we're going to go when we're in school, whether it's undergrad or grad degrees, the reality is often very different. And I think we need to embrace that reality and not always, you do need to push towards your goals, but not always say, those are my goals and I can't vary from them, but to see that you have another path that's opening in front of you and you need to jump on that path.
Yeah, beautifully said. That's one of my soapboxes for sure. It's kind of like an archer, and I've never given this analogy, but you just inspired me. It's kind of like being an archer and having that bow and arrow and having your eye on the prize, the bullseye right there, that target in front of you. You need to have that, or you don't have direction in your steps. You're kind of then just aimlessly going about. But if you're noticing that the wind is changing and you need to pivot a little bit in order to maybe go towards that same goal, the same bullseye, but just from a different angle, in a different direction, that's being smart. Right. Or is the wind changing so much that you have to now aim your arrow towards a new bullseye?
Yeah, that's true. Because, if you don't have direction, you're probably just going to meander. Yeah. So you do have to have that goal in front of you, where you want to go, what you want to do, what you think life is going to give you. But, we all, when you get to a certain age, you really realize how life throws you curveballs and you go different directions. And it's not the straight path. There's definitely people that I'm sure had the goal, whatever, to play in whatever symphony, and they've stayed that goal and that's it. And that's great. But I think for the vast majority of us, the goal was great because it gave us the skills and the knowledge that we need for whatever the future is going to hold for us. And then when the curveballs come, and as the term pivoting goes, you're like, I do have to pivot because, well, like me, the community that I've settled in is a tiny, tiny upstate New York community. There's not, a lot of musical, there is music in various areas, but not a lot of musical opportunities. And so you have to say, well, right, what is my purpose here? Do I just not pursue anything? I just move on to a different path for my life, or can I make something work? And I think today's, with all of our technology and media and social media and YouTube and all those things, that we do have a lot more opportunities than we used to have.
Oh, for sure. Technology can be a blessing if you utilize it in the correct way. So the listeners can hear that you and I are already friends, and we are like diving right in and just picking up as if we had, talked yesterday. It's been a few months, but I just love that synergy because that means that I'm in good company. And so with that, I do want to backpedal just a little bit because I'm getting so excited to talk about that trajectory and talk about your pivoting and how your career unfolded in ways that perhaps you didn't anticipate. But I do want to give the listener context of like Dr. Flute and your wonderful YouTube channel and all of that. So let's go there.
All right. So like how I got started? Is that what you're asking?
Well, just even like how you got started, your background, your origin story, so that maybe we could appreciate your pivot that much more.
Well, I come from a very musical family. My parents are both horn majors at college, and my father played professional horn for a while, and then really at the time. So let's say I think he was in an orchestra in the 60s, and he, believe it or not, could not make a living to support a wife and 2 children in that full-time symphony. And so he started teaching. So this symphony knew that. So it rehearsed at night, every night of the week. So he would teach school during the day and then go to symphony at night.
Wow.
It was not sustainable at that. And because he could make a living teaching, he went the teaching route. But when they settled in upstate New York themselves, they played in the local symphonies, just part-time and stuff. So I grew up with, classical music being played all the time. So my older sister and I both went the music route. My 2 younger sisters went a different route. And, the only options that really at the time I was in school was you either teach or you try to go professional, orchestra. So you're aiming for an orchestra or you teach school. And my parents said, we want to make sure that you can support yourself when you're done with school. So we really encourage that you do education, because my older sister and I would both have probably just done the performance route and not done education. Not that we had any issue with that. It's just that my parents said, I want you to be able to work. If you don't get that college job or you don't get that orchestra, you need to have another option. So that's when I started out my life. I went right to a master's degree in performance, and then I taught school for 7 years, just public school band. I was the band director. And it was when I was, single, teaching band, going, you know what, I really love this. I loved public school teaching. I loved being a band director in a high school. I just one day said, either I do this for the rest of my life, or it's time to move on. And I chose the moving on, and ended up at Eastman to work on my DMA. And it's actually a DMA in music education, which at Eastman, that's like double majoring. Your DMA, so you have the performance degree, and then you have music education, as opposed to a PhD in education or a DMA in performance. You sort of combine those two degrees, which was perfect, because when I finished there, I got a full-time college position, being half flute professor, half music education professor. So it was, it segued beautifully into the college profession. So that's, kind of how I got through there. And I played in an orchestra for a time period, but it was an hour and a half from my house over hill and dale to get there. And when little tiny babies started coming along, it was, there were some nights where I'd come home from orchestra and it was just very scary in the snow and the weather, being in New York, we've got weather because I'm upstate. So I'm probably 5 hours from New York City.
Okay.
So a good ways up. I'm not hopping down into the city. It's a big trip to go to the city. So I just said, I can't do that anymore. I cannot drive with children. I need to be here and be alive for them. So I decided to not do that. And then just decided it wasn't compatible with my college job either to have. And, in 5 years, I had 4 children. So it was, it was a lot. And so I just said, I've got to take time off and raise these little children for a while. But at one point, I just said, I took, it was really, I was just praying about this because I knew that my responsibilities to the children, but I just thought, Lord, is this all my life is going to be? And I know it's not all, it's what I need to do. Children, they are a blessing. I need to do this, but is there something else I could do? And it was really a short period of time when I got a call from my alma mater, which is about an hour and a half from where I live. And they said, we need a flute teacher. Do you want to do it? And I started college teaching again. And I still am teaching at that school 16 years later. And it was perfect there because I could do that, 2 days a week and still have time for the family and all that. But life has just changed dramatically because I really thought that I would go the orchestra route and do that. I didn't know that I'd get married and have 4 children in 5 years and live in this little tiny community in upstate New York where there's no real opportunity for that. And so, you start thinking, what can I do with these skills? I have these skills that the good Lord has given me. And I have no place really, yes, the college teaching, but 1 or 2 days a week is not a ton. What should I do with these? And my husband just started learning about Udemy, and he took some classes on Udemy, which is, a learning platform. And he said, you know what, I think there's a place for you on Udemy. I think you ought to really start doing this. And I thought, I don't know. What am I supposed to, I don't have anything really I think I could offer. And he just started brainstorming and said, let's do a beginner flute class. And so I started with a beginner flute class and then went to a intermediate flute class on Udemy, and then ended up have 5 classes on Udemy and a couple classes on Skillshare and a couple classes on Teachable. I have some classes on MuseScore. It just exploded from there about teaching in all those different areas. And it really worked. One thing that I did have here was a large private studio. And so that kind of propelled me into this pedagogy field.
Hmm.
And that's kind of where it all started. You have to, when you do Udemy, you have to put some free courses up on not courses, but a couple of your lectures that you have on your class. Okay. You have to put them free, and you can put them free and advertise them with YouTube. And that's how the YouTube channel started. Just putting up some free videos for Udemy to advertise my beginner flute class. And then I did a meet the instruments for this beginner flute class. Meet the bass flute, meet the alto flute. And it was just crazy how meet the bass flute exploded.
Really?
Just started. It's not viral, as they say. It's not a million views. But, for a video that was never meant to go on YouTube, it has done pretty well.
Huh. So time frame wise, as you were uploading these courses that your husband was encouraging you to do, at what point did you segue and say, okay, now I'm going into this brand of Dr. Flute?
Yeah. Again, that was my husband's idea. He said, you're the one that has the education. You have the doctor in front of your name. And I think that if you called yourself Dr. Flute, that would really be your name. So on Udemy, that's where it started, was being Dr. Flute. And then we're thinking, okay, well, website. We need a website to put up these videos as well. And he said, drflute.com, that's going to work. And it wasn't taken, so, which was beautiful at the time.
Yeah. No, it's good branding. I love the brand. And so when you came up with the brand drflute.com, did you think going into it like, oh, okay, this is going to be an arm, this is going to be a part of my portfolio career, and I'm going to potentially have sponsors and students finding me? Or was it just kind of happenstance to go, okay, this is a nice segue from the classes? But did you have like the business mindset initially?
I did not.
Or did that come later?
No. I think my husband did, because he's always been in the business world. That's been his profession, okay. But not me. The education field is not necessarily business minded, as you have often spoken about. Yeah. That is not something, and especially there was no music business major in college when I was going. There might have been in some larger schools, but I'm not sure that there was. It just wasn't a thing. And you don't talk about business. You just study your music history, your music theory, your performance classes, and that's it. And then good luck when you graduate finding whatever, job you can get. So no, I think it just started evolving as we saw that these videos that were just supposed to be up for free to advertise my Udemy classes were getting some traction. We said, why don't we just make videos for YouTube that aren't part of Udemy? And so I started doing that. And now for my dissertation, for my DMA, I wrote about beginner flute pedagogy. So that's been part of my oeuvre, and so I had that mindset to do a lot of stuff. But also, when I started thinking about these YouTube channel classes, I grew up in a small town that was very tiny, and you would have to travel an hour or more to get to any flute teacher at all. And funny enough, I wasn't planning on being a flute major. I was going to be a vet. So my whole trajectory was vet. And then I had to give in to the family business my senior year. So it wasn't until my senior year before I said, I give in. Everybody's a music major in my family. I give in. But I really liked the pedagogy aspect because I felt like two things. One, I did not get great flute education growing up. My parents being horn majors, I did not get really good flute lessons. And even in my undergrad, I feel like there was a lot missing that I had to make up for. I really had to work hard at it and figure it out for myself. I had to do a lot. Also, I think that sometimes, unfortunately, the flute world is wrapped in mystery and maybe, dare I say, tiny bit of snobbishness, not all the time, but just in like explaining how things can be done. I tell you, one of the worst things that I could never figure out was, what is this thing called support? what is this thing called support? How am I supposed to use support if I have no idea how to use support in my flute playing?
Yeah.
And it was a while before I figured it out on my own. And that's, while, meaning in my 20s.
Yeah.
Before I understood what that meant. And I thought, why do we use this term support if we can't explain it?
Sure.
If there's no good explanation for explaining these things, we need to put it in terms people can understand.
Yeah.
And so that's one of my high horses I like to get on is stop, always using the term support and thinking everybody knows what that means.
Yeah.
Because they don't. I tell you, they do not know. If you did not grow up having these private lessons from your childhood on, you don't know necessarily what support means.
Mm-hmm. No, really breaking it down and making it digestible for the student at any age or level. And I think that's what good teaching is breaking down a complex subject or topic and putting it in terms that the average Joe or Jane can understand. That's really good teaching.
Yeah. Yep. And that's kind of where the YouTube channel all evolved from.
Okay.
Yes. Just saying, I want to teach things for people that grew up in those tiny, tiny towns that don't get those flute teachers, or maybe can't afford it. And because that's, I'm sure, a large population. They want to learn more, but you can't maybe afford it because you've got 4 kids.
Yeah, no, there's so much that you said in your story, Angela, that I'm geeking out about. And I want to highlight a few things because from the standpoint, since we're both businesswomen, I hear it. I'm like, oh yeah. But I kind of want to highlight a few factors in case somebody missed it, because I don't want anyone to miss these gold nuggets. And that is the element of your childhood and the fact that you didn't have really good flute teaching from the get-go. And then as you became this professional, you're making these courses, you tapped into that void in the market that you saw as a professional and you wanted to fill in that gap. And that is so imperative as somebody who has this portfolio career. And this is one of my soapboxes. And that is, you have a unique voice and you have a unique set of skills that you can offer to your community and to your tribe. And you have to know what you're passionate about, what you're good at, what you can get paid to do, and what's missing in the market. So you naturally, from your origin story and from your roots, you recognized, oh, young Angela felt this. She didn't have the information. She didn't have these resources readily available. There are probably 40 years later, other young Angelas who could really benefit from these videos. And so does that resonate with you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would say everything I teach is stuff I wanted to have known. I wish I'd known when I was, before I even went to college. I wish I'd known some of this stuff. It would have started me on a little bit higher path than where I got to. I mean, I got into music school, but for various reasons, I don't feel like even there I had the best flute experience. So I still felt like I was missing something, that I had to keep figuring it out on my own. And, I did a lot of reading. I voraciously read Flute Talk magazines to kind of, there was a lot of good. I'm sad that it's not in existence right now because there was so much good stuff in there. So much good stuff.
Yeah.
That, that I pulled from to help me figure things out and put this nugget with this nugget and go, oh, now I get whatever.
Yeah. So you technically then were your first customer. You were helping out younger Angela. And it's so crazy because that's how Flute 360 started too. Like the first 8 episodes for my dissertation, basically I was regurgitating research that I had done between master's and doctorate because I was going through health-related injuries or health-related things because of flute performance. And so as I was researching those 6 years, as I was teaching between master's and DMA, when it came time for that dissertation, I was like, well, I'm going to share this research with the world because I wished I would have known this about my body and how to take care of my body and exercise and preventative measures I can take as a musician back then and I wish I would have known this in my young 20s, because I would have skyrocketed. I would have really blossomed if that information was embedded in me. And so those stories align. And so that kind of comes full circle to a question I have for you. When 360ers are recognizing, like you articulated this so beautifully, I wanted to be, that orchestral flutist. And I noticed like, hey, I'm planted in this region of upstate New York. This is where I'm planted. This is where God wants me to be. And I need to blossom here. Like there's not a lot of opportunities, right? So I'm going to make those opportunities for myself. And recognizing this common thread of how you and I were filling in this void in the market is a good place. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's a good place and a good sound advice to those who don't know where to go and pivot and how to pivot into a new path for their career. So as they are doing that pivot, they hear you say like, oh yeah, I want to be an orchestral flutist and I decided to make these videos, right? A lot of times 360ers will say, okay, that's great. Like I'm in upstate New York too. I've decided that the orchestral world is not for me. I want to pivot, but I don't know what I'm pivoting into, what that even looks like. So is it safe to say, like, look at the breadcrumbs around you and notice what you wished you would have known when you were younger?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't, everybody has a different path and they've come along a different path. So someone else's path has not been my path. So my experiences or lack thereof kind of created who I am and what I do, the whole Dr. Flute branding. But someone else may have a totally different idea of what they wish they knew or what they wish they could have done.
Right.
I do like seeing the creativity on YouTube of what people do with their flutes, the various, is beatboxing. I mean, look at Greg Patillo.
Yeah.
That was just I think it was innate in his personality, and it had to come out in his flute because he was a musician, and yet he had this other side to him, and it just had to happen because that was him. And he created this whole new sort of genre of flute playing because that was in his personality and it came out. It's how he used. Or I like Melissa Keeling. She went a straight concert route as well. But I've just read a little bit about her trajectory, and it just playing the sonatas and the concerto, she said, just didn't feel right for her. Maybe that was a podcast that I listened to with her, but it just didn't feel right. And so she developed this whole new persona for herself and what she is doing with the flute and the various extended techniques and just different ways she's using she uses the glissando head joint and various and sundry kind of things. But, she's created a career and a path for herself that I'm sure was not even thought of or dreamt of, even though, she's probably a good 20 years younger than me, but when she was in school still. So I think we do have to look around. And I've talked on my YouTube channel about, you want this orchestral career, but you know what? Who's around you? I've had a great introduction to a percussionist marimba player. And you know what? So last number of years, we have done a number of concerts. My faculty recitals at Houghton College have been with flute and percussion, because that I never would have thought of flute and percussion or flute and marimba, but that's the musician that was ready, that's in my neighborhood and said, I'm in, let's do it. And currently, because of a homeschooling community, because I've homeschooled the kids, I got connected to an orchestral oboe player, and we found a bassoon player in the nearby areas. And you know what? We have with a pianist, a quartet that we do flute, oboe, bassoon, and piano. And there's no concert series readily available to us, so we have to work at finding those places to play. But we've got a good concert season set up for the year because we've all worked at it. But those are the people that were put in my path for me to play with. I didn't set out to say, oh, I like flute, oboe, bassoon, and piano.
Yeah.
That is the group I'm destined to play with. But those are the people that are around me. So, that's what we have to do instead of fighting for something that we think is the right path for us. Look around and say, what is in my path? What do I like to do? What is the kind of music I like to play? How can I put those together? What are the musicians in my life? I always wanted to have a really good pianist in my neighborhood that wanted to play with me, but there's never been a really good pianist. There is at the college that I teach at, but that's an hour and a half away. So we're not having rehearsals all the time. So it's harder, but you know what? These flute, oboe, bassoon, and piano are all within 30 minutes of me. So we can get together every week and a couple times and do our stuff. So yeah, I think that we have to get away from, while our goals are great because they get us where we're going to, they get us the skills that we need. We then have to say, where am I planted? Where am I planted? And then how can I bloom there?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And you talking about this specific ensemble, it reminds me of the musicians during the summer break at the Esterhazy house during Haydn's Day. Remember how during the summer breaks, they would go and travel back home or vacation or whatever. And then Haydn only had a handful of musicians during the summer break. So he's like, well, what music can I make for the musicians that are left and who stayed at the Esterhazy house?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Those were the people there.
Yeah, that's really cool. So then because you've pivoted into this career and you've made the career your own, a unique thumbprint, and you are blossoming where you are planted, what does a day in the life of Dr. Flute look like?
So it is difficult to balance. Now, all the kids now, one's in college and the other three are all teenagers. And so it's not like when they're all babies. There's a totally different lifestyle, but there is carting them around. So, a day in the life means I have to do everything based on where the kids have to go.
Okay.
So that all is figured into there. But with my YouTube channel, I try to stack that. So I try to, because it's not probably feasible for me to do with everything that's going on in life with kids and college and all that, and practicing and rehearsals and, all the pedagogy things that I'm doing too, to think about them every day. So I try to categorize when I'm going to work on something.
Okay.
So, a day in the life of the YouTube channel would be, I have stacked up 6, 7, or 8 various flute tips that I want to video. And I will then wait till everybody is out of the house, except for my husband and I. And then we set up the studio, which, by the way, is just, people don't need to have the best and highest quality equipment to do these kinds of things. Just so we film everything on an iPhone. We do have a light kit. So we have a light kit and it's in an unfinished basement. I just have we built a background so it looks like a wall. And then we have the videos or the lights centered around that, and I have a table, and that's it. That's the studio that I film everything in. We do have a Zoom, so we put the audio on a Zoom recorder, and then so the video is all on iPhone and the audio is on a Zoom recorder. Then my husband edits that and puts it together. But I'm going to stack all those up and just bam, 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 just try to get all those videos done so that I can be done for a little while.
Yep.
And then I can go, all right, next is, we've got a couple of performances with my quartet. Next day I can go, all right, I did those videos. I didn't practice on that day, but I had my flute in my hands the whole day. So the next day is, I can get back into a routine of practicing. And so then with life, once you finish all your education, you don't get handed to you 3 or 4 hours a day to practice.
No, you do not.
It is just not built in. I remember there, yes, you've got classes and you're busy at college. I'm not putting that down, and grad school.
Right.
That's a busy life. I know that, but practicing is built in. It's part of the trajectory. It's what you have to do. And when you are living a life where you have dogs and cats and 4 children and school that they have to get to and activities because they're all in sports and lessons that they all do as well, you have to squeeze your practicing in in the midst of all that. And then I teach at 2 colleges. So, then you're fitting your practicing in the midst of teaching at both of those colleges as well. So I really, really am a big fan of when you have time to practice, you try to do as much in a short period of time as you possibly can.
Yep.
I think so many times that I've done numerous videos on YouTube about this, but use your practice. If you're going to warm up with a scale, use that scale to practice tone as well. Just combine them. Or if you have such a short period of time, which is generally my life, take some rapid 16th note passage that you're learning in sub solo and use that as your tone, your technique, and just learning the passage, your etude. You're going to use it for everything, and just concentrate on learning that. And then say, I got a lot done today. I got a lot done.
Oh, I love that. So even kind of taking, I don't know, I'm just going off on a whim here, but just taking like movement 1 of Iber Concerto, and that beginning lick is hard or whatever.
Yep.
So instead of just thinking of like the repertoire, Iber Concerto, break it down, make each note a whole note, make each note a half note, and make that into your tone exercise, your long tones. And then maybe do some practice rhythms and mix up the articulation. And there's your articulation exercise. And then you're doing it from the repertoire. So you're kind of killing 4 birds with 1 stone.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You do it all there. Now, I do think that you have to have done some hard work ahead of time. I mean, you can't just say as a 8th grader, oh, okay, that's all I'm going to do.
Right.
You have to have done some long tones. You've got to get yourself to a certain level that you can really work on long tones in that solo. So I think, there needs to be some background. I'm not saying just jump into only practicing solos, but I kind of got into thinking though along that way, because I remember in college, and for us flute players, we've got our tone books, we've got our technique books, we've got our etude books, and then we work on solos. We've got those 4 areas. And then talking to a pianist saying, the only thing I'm working on right now is my Chopin ballade. That's it. You mean you don't do any scale? No, we don't do that anymore. It just seems like pianists use their solos as everything.
Oh, interesting.
As everything that they need to do. I mean, that's my experience with pianists. I can't say that is every pianist across the board. I haven't taken a big survey. That, but I thought that, wow, that's really curious that they don't need to do an etude. Of course, yes, they talk about tone, but it's not the same way that we talk about tone. And their whole solo, whatever they're working on, a couple solos or whatever, that is everything. That covers everything for them. And I thought, well, if they can do it, why can't we? If you've got lots of time, please do your long tones and do all that. I'm not saying we don't need to do that anymore, but life is crazy.
Yeah,
it's for everybody. We all have our own path. We all have our own reasons why we're busy. Mine just happened to be 4 kids and a husband. And so that, that plus college teaching and, all the other things, that makes my life crazy.
Right.
And so practice time is an absolute premium. So, I usually can't do it right away, but, this year, like today, the kids are all out of the house right at 10 o'clock. And so I can practice from 10 to noon. That's on Mondays. That's just Mondays. But then that's it for the day. I don't get a chance to do it again. And then, Tuesdays I'm at this college. And so where am I going to squeeze it in there? But for doing, Dr. Flute, or if I'm filming a class for one of the teaching platforms, that's always going to be planned out, going to be on a weekend, and going to be scheduled in like a job.
No, I love that. So being very intentional when you are practicing, because you know your time is limited. You know that you wear all of these different hats in your life, and you're not just a flutist. You're a mom, you're a wife, and you're a professor, a performer, a YouTuber. And so you have to, when you get to practice, being really strategic and really smart and intentional with your time. And so, and making it a priority. And so that's another pain point I hear quite often. And I completely empathize. Like what you said so beautifully earlier, you said we all have these different things that make us busy, whether you're in high school and you're juggling marching band, plus friends, plus your first time job, studies, things like that. No matter what season you're in, you're going to be busy, right? And so I hear a lot of times from my 360 students and 360ers, well, air quote, I don't have enough time. And I always find like I'm telling these clients and students, well, we need to, in a very loving way, we need to prioritize. Like, what are your priorities? Because we can't do it all. We're not a robot. We're not go, go, go. We are going to need to lead a balanced life so that way we can be fulfilled and all that jazz. So how do you prioritize? How do you do you do goal setting every week? What's your approach to saying, okay, you're not going to accept everything that comes across your desk? Because I'm sure you are offered, or a lot of different projects are proposed to you, constantly, because you're in the public eye. So at what point do you say, you know what, like that's a great idea, but I'm going to have to pass because here are my other priorities and they take precedent to this project and I can't take on more? At what point do you say, all right, I need to pause some things, stop some things, say no to some things in order to keep yourself in check?
Yeah, that's a hard one. It's definitely hard for everybody. We never have enough time. There's never enough hours in the day to do the things you want to do and get everything done. So it's a battle we're always going to be fighting, I think.
Okay.
And I think acknowledging that, we need to acknowledge that, time is an issue, and we need to acknowledge that, because I think the only way to really figure that out and what your priorities are within the time you have is to go, I'm never going to have enough time. It's just not, because we are fighting the world and fighting everything that's coming our way, and it's too much. So we do have to. Now, number one, I'm really bad at saying no. Really, really bad. My husband is very, very good at saying no.
Okay.
So he often interferes and says, you can't do this.
I'm saying no for you.
He doesn't say no for me, but he really kind of helps me to see the picture. He helps me to see, okay, do you see how you can't do that? Because it just, like last year was just an insane year. I was teaching at 3 different colleges, teaching at my kids' homeschool thing, and playing and performing. And it was just, well, I have to say, I realize that for all those people, mothers and fathers that have full-time job and just, sometimes those jobs are just 12 hours and they get home and like, okay, you can't do it all, because I realized I couldn't do it all. I just could not do it all. And so that was, I always knew I couldn't do it all, but just having it spelled out for me in such a blatant way, I'm like, okay, you can't really do it all. You cannot be a mother, a wife, a flutist, all those things if you don't slow down and put a stop to some of that that you're working on. But I would say that I'm very good at working a planner. I think that is my saving grace. And I think writing it down actually on paper and pen is a really good way of figuring out your life.
Yeah, there's something with actually seeing it. Because we have these, and I thought about this after I had published a recent episode about time management. And I was giving some new fresh tips on time management, because I know that topic can be presented to death.
Yeah.
But there's, even post-production of that episode, I think it was like 261 or 262. I even thought of this. We have these ideas and goals and they're in our mind. It's not tangible, but if you actually put it pen to paper, you almost make it tangible. And by seeing it, then it's almost like, I know it's on a piece of paper, but it's almost like an object. You can almost like wrap your mind around it more because you can see it. Seeing is believing. And then the chances of you actually taking action towards it, I think, are higher.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. And I'm a really big fan of, even though I've completed something for my day, writing it in my planner anyway.
I do the same thing.
Yeah. I want to see it there. I want to see myself check it off. And then I can look and go, okay, let me look at all the stuff that I actually did get done today. And then the things that I still need to do. And if I can flip them over to tomorrow, if that's going to work. But I think that visual and that satisfaction of going, there's a job that I didn't even know I needed to do that I got done. Let me write that down.
You told a secret of mine that I never confessed ever to anyone. Because after the day is done, I'll put it in my to-do list of things I have completed. And I will even catch myself and I will say to myself, Heidi, that is the silliest thing ever. Like, you already did it. But to me, it feels like I'm really accomplished. And it almost like puts that check down where I'm like, because if I don't see it, then, and if it's not on the list, but I did it and I go to bed, I think, oh, I didn't do anything. But if I actually write it out and check it, I know I did something.
Yeah.
I kid you not. I don't even think Eric knows that about me.
It's a mental game, but I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm not embarrassed. I am not embarrassed and afraid to say I do that.
No, I love that. I'm glad you do it because now I feel more valid.
You're justified. You're justified.
I feel more justified. Wow. Oh my gosh, that is great. So within like the day of the life of, right? And we have your full-time career, your portfolio, prioritizing everything. How do you keep yourself accountable when you are the only one to keep yourself accountable? Because you are, you know what I mean? Because you are it. You're not, I mean, like, yes, you're a professor and they have their own deadlines and expectations, but like your internal, your own personal, professional goals outside of those institutions.
Yeah, that's hard. I've been always intrinsically motivated, and I am not an A-type personality whatsoever. I am not at all. So I do think if I were an A-type personality, I would probably get more done. But it's not me. However, I have been very competitive with myself, not necessarily with the world, but that's always been part of my personality. And then I'm intrinsically motivated. I have inside. Okay. So I think if you don't have that, you've got to figure out for yourself what is going to motivate you to do what you have to do. Because you know what? We don't get any time back.
Yep.
We don't get any time back once it's gone. And I can't say that I'm not guilty of that. I'm as guilty as anybody else of wasting time. We've got these devices all over the place. I'm doing this on an iPad and the iPhone, and we got the computers, and we've got all the stuff. And there's just so much that we can do to waste time. So if we don't really say, I need self-discipline, I need to have goals. I think goals are hugely important. We talked about, our goals as a newly minted graduate of college and what am I going to do? But I think still, I'm a mom and, I'm middle-aged and I still have goals. I still have goals that I want to do and accomplish before life is taken from me. And I think those keep you motivated. I think you just have to put some goals in front of you. Because if you don't, why, especially in your field, like in flute, it's so easy to have that time be totally taken from you.
Yes.
Because there's so many ways to fill it. So I would really stress goal setting is very important.
I love that. Yes. In the place that I'm in right now, I'm just like you, Angela, where saying no to things is really challenging because, and I think that could be true for a lot of flutists out there because we are very passionate people. I think musicians are innately passionate, right? We want to get our hands on these different projects. We want to dive our creativity into these different realms. And so it's yes, 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 because we get excited and we want to partner with these people, right? Now in the stage that I'm in, going into my 40s, lately I've been thinking of this idea of like, if it's not a heck yes, then it's a pass. Like it has to be almost this decision that I make within like 5-10 seconds. Because if I'm not careful, time will be taken from me and it will feel like it's spiraling out of control. Where at the end of the day, week, quarter, whatever, I'm like, wait, where am I? What am I doing? How am I over here? Yeah. And so I think like we have to be, no one else is going to set up those healthy boundaries for yourself other than you. Nobody is going to come in unless, I mean, you could hire some sort of coach, right? I guess that could help you if organizing and saying yes or no to things is challenging. I guess you could hire an outside source. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you are the only one who's going to be able to set up those healthy boundaries and then prioritize those goals, make steps towards those goals. And that's going to help you stay accountable and everything else that we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. You know, there are lots of books written on boundaries. And if you have a hard time with boundaries, then reading some of those books, I think can really help. I think there's a lot of value to some of the boundary. I know Claude Townsend, is it Claude Townsend? I think has got a really good boundaries in marriage and boundaries in workplace and boundaries in, there's a series of boundaries. And that those I think are really helpful because I'm not sure it's always innate in all of us to set boundaries.
Yeah.
I think that we have to figure that out. And what are the boundaries? Where are they necessary in our life? You know, I have to say, I attend church. I love going to church, but sometimes because of just the nature of volunteer work, sometimes you need to set boundaries there. Can you do junior church? Can you do the nursery? Can you help set up for this? Can you do the youth rallies? And can you do this? And, you know, if you're not careful, you can just say yes to everything because it's a volunteer and I should do this. And, you know, no, you shouldn't. You can't do everything. And that's just through life. You can't do everything. And you do have to say, okay, what is important to do? I've heard many a speaker talk about just you sitting down and going, what is important to me? What is important in my life to do, to work on? And so once I figure that out, I can say, okay, this periphery might not be necessary in my life.
Yeah. And then you can identify the situations, the opportunities, the people that don't fit necessarily in that bubble in that particular season as not a part of, you know, your main goal within that time frame. And you're like, oh, I can identify that this is not a goal of mine. It doesn't really fit into this bubble. So then I can kind of pass for the time being. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, definitely we need to work at that, especially because of society today. You know, it is just, we could be our time and our talents, and it can all be good stuff that we're asked to do and participate in, but we're finite creatures. And there's only so much that we can do and dedicate our time to. So we definitely have to figure that out. And sometimes just putting it down on paper helps all the different thoughts you had going on in your head. It just makes them a cohesive idea.
Ooh, yeah.
And, you know, because you actually wrote it down.
Yep.
So it just puts it all together because we thought we knew what we wanted or what we were thinking. But our thoughts can be very jumbly.
Yes, they can be. Speaking from experience. So to wrap up this conversation, I haven't done this in a while, but one of my end segments of each show is called Picks, where my guest gets to offer a pick. And I haven't done that in a really long time. So if you could offer a pick to the listener today, that would be fantastic. And it could be a pick, anything under the sun, your favorite serial, TV, movie, book that you're reading right now, anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I'll give a book.
Okay.
It's called Educated.
Okay.
It's a memoir of a young lady. She's probably in her 30s now, but it's her life growing up in Idaho. And it was riveting. Absolutely. Ooh. I could not put it down. Ooh. It was riveting.
I have not heard in 260 episodes anyone use the word riveting. So you know that's really good when you are using that word.
Yeah. Yep. This is a young girl, how she grew up, how she beat the odds, got herself educated from where she was at, and just her own personal stamina and fortitude has gotten her to where she is now. Wow. And so that's, I can't remember her name, but the book is just phenomenal.
Okay. I will definitely find the book and put it in the show notes below, so that way you guys have the link. But Angela, thank you so much for your time. And I've learned a lot, and I just love the synergy, and I'm so appreciative of our new friendship. And you brought so much value to the listener today, and we thank you for that.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Mm-hmm. I've been a 360 listener for a long time, and it's been a pleasure to be on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that support. That means the world to me.
Oh, yeah. You're welcome. I enjoy, well, you know, that I've done a lot of driving. There's a lot of listening in the car. Yeah. Yeah. The whole family is listened to your podcast. Everybody.
There you go. Oh my gosh. You just made my entire year. So I'm good. I can just go through the rest of the Monday and say, well, my job here is done and complete, and I'm signing off for the rest of the day now. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So you have a blessed rest of your Monday, and we'll be in touch soon about future things that you and I want to put our hands on. And
yes, would love to.
I can't wait to see how this unfolds, and I will put all of Dr. Flute's links in the show notes below, so that way you have a chance to go to her YouTube channel and all of her different social media accounts.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you for listening to the Flute 360 podcast. Please go to HeidiKBGay.com/contact and let's connect. If you need guidance in terms of your musical career, please do not hesitate to reach out. I have been helping musicians for years navigate their careers, and I would love to help you do the same. Let me help you find your unique voice on and off the stage today. Schedule a 15-minute discovery call to see how I can help you. Please go to HeidiKBGay.com/contact or calendly.com/HeidiKBGay, and let's talk. The links are in the show notes below. Talk to you soon. Let's talk about flute.